Hello, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to the table. My name is Barbie Winterbottom. I am the founder and CEO of the Business of HR, and I work with organizations around the globe with transformation, HR, talent acquisition. I coach and develop HR professionals to be business leaders who work in the people space. And today on our show, I am thrilled to thank our sponsor, Daily Pay. We truly appreciate your partnership and your collaboration. And if you guys have not checked out Daily Pay, please do. It's a phenomenal benefit to offer your employees to allow them to access any earned but unpaid wages at any time through an app on their phone, and there's no interest involved. So it's a phenomenal product, and I will put a QR code at the end so that you can just click on that and check them out. In addition to our wonderful sponsor, I am also thrilled and excited to introduce all of you to someone who I have followed. I feel like she's been a personal mentor, even though we haven't spent a ton of time together one-on-one. She is a speaker, a consultant, an author, a thought leader, someone who is absolutely considered an influencer in the space of leadership and people and culture and workplace. And she's a former human resources professional herself. The amazing, wonderful, and exciting Laurie Ruettimann. I am so excited to have you here. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, shoot, I can't hear you.
Of course, it's 2022 and everybody's making that mistake still. It's an honor to be here, and whatever, I'm making internet mistakes like a noob. All right, it's cool.
What a perfect way to start. I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you for being here. And for those of you who may not know, Laurie is the author of this phenomenal book called Betting on You. And if you haven't read or listened to it yet, it's not only a book that will help you with yourself and your career, but it's also going to make you laugh out loud, as it has for me. And I am thrilled to talk about this with our audience and help them understand your journey and how all of the some crazy things, but all of the wonderful things you've experienced might help reframe some things for them as well. And I love the overarching theme of betting on you, in that if we want to change anything in our world, we have to look at ourselves first, and we have to kind of clean up our own side of the street before we can start looking at everyone else and what they're doing wrong. So, Laurie, I would love to ask you to kind of kick us off with what made you decide to write your book, and what inspired you there, and then maybe we'll get into some of your amazing stories that perhaps our audience doesn't know yet.
Well, I've been blogging and writing for a lot of years, Barbie, and people kept saying to me, "Where's your book? Where's your book?" And I had tried to write an HR book, and nobody wanted to read it. Nobody had any interest in that. And I had, fielded a manuscript and gone through the process. And people are like, "This is boring, and this is not the experience we get with you on the internet." And a friend of mine, who's also a thought leader in the space and esteemed speaker, said, "Quit messing around. Write the book you were meant to write." I thought, oh my God, what is that even? I don't know what that looks like. So I took some time and really thought about the lessons learned in my life. And one of the things I recognized is something I say all the time: we fix work by fixing ourselves first. I'm like, where did that come from? Why do I say that? And once I started going on that journey, I really recognized that in my life, I always had this expectation that if only I got the next job or the next promotion, or if only I lost 15 pounds, I would be happier. And those things do indeed make me happy, right? But it was almost as if I had to do a root cause analysis and regain the locus of control in my life. And I recognize that indeed by fixing myself, by working on issues around self-leadership and my own well-being and my own continuous learning and learning how to take a risk. If I did all of that and had more pets in my life, I would be happier. So that's my story.
I love that. And I just muted myself because my pets are now barking.
Let them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They sit in the office with me during the day. And if somebody comes in, and we have a door code, hear that beep that somebody's opening the door, and all hell breaks loose because they're super excited to see who it is, because of course whoever it is here to see them, not us. So hopefully they'll settle back down again.
My goodness.
So I love that we share certain passions, right? Our passion for animals and rescuing animals is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I've rescued more animals than I think, like, I'm a magnet for the stray animals of the world. And
of course,
I've even rescued animals out of their own front yard because I didn't know that's where they lived and I thought they were lost.
Well, when you're a sucker for lost causes, whether that's in human resources or with animals, you really are a sucker. And I feel like I spent my whole entire life like trying to rescue other people until I was in my very early 30s. And I'm like, dang, I need some rescuing myself. And that's kind of where the book begins, right? I'd been giving to animals, giving to other people, giving to the world, giving to employees who didn't love me back because I worked in human resources. And finally, I was like, you know what? I need some help. And I had this breakdown at an airport. And that's how I framed the beginning of the story, where I was traveling in between cities. I was eating Starburst for dinner and drinking Pepsi because I thought I didn't have enough time to sit down and eat a proper meal, reading Us Weekly, because why would I read anything that was helpful? My brain was just fried. And I thought, why are all these wealthy people doing it right? Like, why not me? Why can't I have all the animals and all the goodness and all the happiness? Why am I such a victim? Why is Miley Cyrus rescuing dogs and not me? Like, what's going on in the world here? And I had this weird epiphany that everybody else who's successful in the world puts themselves first. They prioritize their well-being. They prioritize learning. They run their lives like a business. My company that I worked for, Pfizer, ran itself like a business. Pfizer always had money for Pfizer, even as I was laying off half the workforce. So once I started to have that epiphany, I'm like, no, I got to do me first. And then the animals will come. The goodness will come. And that's the beginning of the story. So
it's really that put your oxygen mask on first scenario, right?
For sure.
And so one of the stories you talk about is you were working for Pfizer and you were traveling all over the place and doing all of these things. And, the image of running through the airport with, Starburst and Pepsi, I can totally relate to that.
Yep.
Been there. And then you had this moment where you're like, I want to lose weight, right? You're not super tall, right? You're like 5 feet tall, I believe you share.
5 feet tall. Yeah.
So I can totally relate to that as well. I'm not 5 feet, but I'm not much taller.
Yeah.
And your weight had gotten to a place where you were no longer comfortable and you wanted to do something about it. So you took a big step, right? You didn't just be like, I'm going to go to the diet doctor and try this. Like, you took a really big step.
Yeah, I did.
Under control, which I think is phenomenal. I applaud you. And I'm sure you got criticism for doing what you did, but I think it was clearly the right choice for you.
Well, let me back up and say, so I was 5 feet tall. I've been trying to get pregnant. I had been pregnant. I'd carried around a lot of baby weight. I wasn't successful at starting a family. And at 5 feet tall, my weight was around like 159 pounds. And every time I went to the doctor, I heard a lot of go to Weight Watchers, get on keto, do this, do that, run a 5K, and none of that was working for me. And it's like, I wasn't heavy enough to qualify at the time for any sort of invasive surgeries, but I wasn't thin enough, according to the fake BMI calendar, to really qualify as someone who was thin. And I thought, enough is enough. I need to get off of this treadmill. So, this is like the 2000s, the beginning of the century. There was no iPhone yet. And I wasn't sure what to do. And I had read in a celebrity magazine about a star who had allegedly had weight loss surgery in Mexico. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for Courtney Love, allegedly, it's good enough for me. I'm going to look into this. And so I went on this journey of trying to figure out, how do I become a medical tourist and take control of my life? And I did indeed go down to Tijuana. I did indeed have lap band surgery so many years ago now. And what I discovered is it was the absolute right thing for me to kick off not just a weight loss journey, but a well-being journey. Because at that moment, I really reclaimed my body, not because I was a woman caught up in diet culture, not because I was a woman who was a victim of society, but I did it because I needed a tool to get back into my own body and in my own life. So I took that step, and right away, I mean, the effect was amazing. More energy, ate better, went to therapy, slept better, started losing weight. And within a year, I didn't even need that tool anymore. So I currently still have this device in my body that's wide open. And now, whenever I start to creep up with my weight, I just work on my diet, exercise. I know it's there if I need it. But for me, and a choice again that I made for my body, was absolutely the right one. But the book starts off with me going to Mexico and what that experience was like. So yeah.
Yes. And it's so entertaining. I was listening to the audiobook driving down the road, and there were certain parts of it where I was just laughing out loud. So your ability to share a story is impeccable. So I love that. But I also love the fact that you said, I'm going to do this. You saw this process, this surgery, this procedure as a tool.
Yeah.
It wasn't the be all end all, right?
Nope.
This wasn't a vanity thing necessarily. Mm-hmm. Certainly we want to look better and feel better, but it wasn't strictly that. It wasn't about, oh, if I lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds or 50 pounds, whatever you wanted to lose, I'm going to gain 500,000 new followers. It wasn't about any of that. It was about, you did it because it's what you wanted to do for yourself. And it was that shift that then all of these other things started to come into play for you. And I think when we find that alignment and when we take control, things start to happen. And it's the same way in our career and our personal life and our career. I know as an entrepreneur who's been in this space now for about a year and a half, and I didn't plan it, right? It was like, oh, by the way, your job's gone, jump in, here you go. About 6 months ago, I had this complete meltdown. And I had a friend of mine at the table with me, and I'm like, I think I just need to get a job. I just think I need to, figure out a way. I'm struggling with how I manage all the things and get consistency and cash flow and all the stuff that as an entrepreneur you deal with. And, my friend was like, no, you're right there. Like, you're on the edge of these things coming together. Just push through it. And then I ended up having a 5-hour lunch with another friend, 2 other friends, and kind of having the same conversation. And that's all it took was those 2 sessions, those conversations with people who I know loved me and cared about me, to say, like, get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Putting your own barriers up and just focus on what you do want. And this is something that Lindsay Pollock shared she was on the show 2 weeks ago. Yep. She said, stop focusing on what you don't want. Start focusing on what you do want. And I'm like,
well, the world needs more Lindsay Pollocks. Like, I fully and completely support that. I just really feel as if there's no one way to do this life. And so often, whether we're in human resources or in a leadership role, we can get very programmatic. And what I didn't want to do is write a book telling people these are the 16 steps to financial freedom or career freedom or being a better leader. Instead, I wanted to put out stories, including my own, where people had a little bit of adversity and overcame that adversity, but still were very human and very grounded about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. In this world, most of us need to work. Most of us are not born of wealth. And we also need to work at companies. Very few of us can be entrepreneurs. And so I put this theory out that no matter where you work, you're going to have these challenges. You're going to have these obstacles, these barriers. And there are these key things that you can do to preserve your own mental well-being, to preserve your physical well-being. And had I known any of this, 15, 20 years ago, I may still be working for Pfizer, which is a very good organization and does amazing work in this world. But unfortunately, nobody had given me those lessons. And so my goal is to really help people to stop just jumping into the deep end of the Great Resignation if they don't have to take 30, 60, 90 days and to go on a journey where they really explore who they are and what they want. Because the worst thing that can happen is arrival fallacy, where you take that next job, you get that promotion, and you go, oh my God, is that all there is? And it's like, yeah, dude, that's all there is, because that's all you are. It's a lie to think that we can arrive somewhere and things will be different. That's not how the world works. Those are the conversations I want to have.
So true. I think about my career journey, and I've always been focused on what's the next thing, right? What's the next promotion, the next title, the next thing. And so when I was in that CHRO seat, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm here. Now what the hell?
Right.
What's next for me? And you take yourself wherever you go. So whatever your bad habits are, whatever your good habits are, whatever the way you process information, the way you lead, all of those things come with you, no matter what your job title is or who you work for or what the situation is. So we have to be introspective to figure out what we need to do to make ourselves feel whole, because we can't be whole for someone else if we're not whole for ourselves. Right. So as you were writing this book and kind of formulating your stories and the stories of folks you've worked with and that type of thing, what was one of the things that you learned in your journey of this book that if you had known, like you said, if I'd have known this at the beginning of my career, it would have changed the way I manage myself. So for the audience, like if there's something that you want them to take away from this conversation, other than to please, get the book because y'all need. Other than that, what would be that nugget that you want them to have in the back of their mind? So when they're questioning, they're like, oh, I remember what Laurie said.
I would like people to start running their careers like businesses. I really espouse this idea of professional detachment. I like to call it slackerism, but I want people to work within a system and recognize they're in a system of work, but they are also their own individual businesses. So if you need a break, take it. If you need to front load your week to take a Thursday or a Friday off, that's fine. If you need to say no to something because it's not right for your business, say no to that. Because one of the most important things that I have recognized in my career is that no business is looking out for you. Only you look out for yourself. So for me, there have been moments in my career where I said yes to opportunities and I didn't need them, but I thought that was the next thing for me. Like I had to do it in order to play the game. Had I been running my life like a business, I could have said, you know what? No, that's not good for my business right now. Instead, I should be taking that time and energy and focusing on my family. So be the CEO of your own life. That's the most important thing. And Barbie, had I done that when I was, 28 years old, life would look completely different for me today. And I love where I am today, by the way. It's absolutely amazing. But we all have different options in our lives. And I just wish I would have freed up some options earlier in my career so that I didn't have to make tougher choices down the road.
Yes, it's so true. When we look back and two things pop to mind. I have one of my coachees was just offered a new position, and where she's working, the CEO literally told her, you'll never be a director in this company. You're never going to go further than where you are. So you can imagine how that left her feeling.
Yeah.
So she started interviewing, as she should. Absolutely. And she now has 2 offers. And we were talking about her offers, and I'm trying to help her negotiate and that kind of thing. She goes, but I told them I can't start for at least 3 weeks, if not 4.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure that the company I work for right now has a seamless transition with their new person, so that payroll's not interrupted and all those things. And I'm like, girl, no, absolutely not. I said, you give them 2 weeks notice, just like you would anybody else. Yeah. That organization doesn't deserve your extra time. I said, you can't grow your career looking in the rearview mirror. Well, you have the offer where you want to go. It's 30% more money. It's a better time. It's all the things that you want. Don't damage your future because of your past that you're leaving behind, when they already told you how they feel and that it's not going to change. Absolutely do not give them 1 more second of your life.
I would support you on that 100%. And also, fine, take 4 weeks, but make sure 2 of those weeks are for you.
Yes, that's what I told her. That's exactly what I told her. Yep. It's like, take a week or so to decompress and enjoy, she lives here in Florida, go to the beach, do whatever you want to do, but do not give them any more of your time. But we've become so conditioned.
Yes.
And I truly believe this. And I still recognize it in myself. And it's been a year and a half since I've been in a corporate role. The way I think, I have to stop myself and challenge myself to say, is that really the best thing for you or for your client or for the person you're coaching? Or is that just a hangover from the way you were conditioned in that corporate world to, our organizations want you to be loyal, they want you to be committed, they want you to be engaged. But if it's not reciprocated, then they don't deserve that from you.
Well, Barbie, that's so well said. And I don't mean to interrupt, but I just feel like saying that never have I met a bigger group of martyrs than in the world of human resources. And never have I met people who have earned less than what they deserve. So it's like, why are you being a martyr when companies generally don't recognize your value, don't listen to your ideas, and don't follow your advice anyway? So while we all want to be professional and respectful, and nobody ever wants to burn a bridge, you are never going to burn a bridge by doing your job with integrity, but saying goodbye. It's absolutely okay to say goodbye. And I write about this in chapter 8 of my book. No job is forever. Every job ends. And in fact, my good friend Jennifer McClure taught me a really important lesson once, that everybody good gets fired once. So, smart people don't always fit in. Talented people ruffle feathers. People with big, innovative ideas work at jobs for 6 months and go, oh, snap, this is the wrong job for me. Yeah, it's okay to leave a job. And in fact, getting fired or indeed burning a bridge and getting the heck out of there is not necessarily a terrible thing. And I like to see HR leaders with a little fire in their belly. So Barbie, your advice is spot on. Get the heck out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and more people need to see that. And I also think one of my other coaches is she left her company. She had been there for like 18 years. And she recognized she needed to do something different and get that spark back. So she went to a new organization. 3-4 weeks in, she's like, oh, I've made a huge mistake. This is not the right culture for me. It was very, very, literally young in age and young in age of employees. And so she's more mature and the way she thinks is different. And I said, so leave. You had 4 offers. You selected that one. Call those companies back. It's only been 3 weeks, and say, you know what? I made a mistake. Own it. It's okay.
Yeah.
And move on and find something better that does align with you and what you believe in and the way in which you work. And she did. And she's happier than she's ever been. But we're so conditioned to feel like we don't have control, that if we try to negotiate $5,000 more, $10,000 more, additional time off or whatever, that they're going to rescind that offer. And I do think that this great resignation is helping people to see a little bit more that they do have the power and the control, but we've always had it, right? That saying from the Wizard of Oz, you've always had the power. You just didn't know it.
That's right.
And that's where, I think we're so aligned. And if I could scream that into people's ears every day, own it, you have it, do what's best for you, because it's not selfish, but we are conditioned to believe it is.
We are.
We've confused being a service to an organization with servitude, and we've got to stop. We've got to move away.
That's really well said. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of these big ideas. Not only am I excited about helping human resources leaders, people leaders, employees think about the future of work in a different way. I'm also excited to talk a little bit about services and technology and some of the innovation happening within human resources. And there is a chapter in my book where I do take a little tangent and talk about some of the cool things that could happen in human resources if everybody just upped their game, if they stepped up and ran their lives like businesses. We wouldn't ask HR people to, mediate our fights or get involved in stupid stuff that happens during the day. HR could focus on cool policies, interesting trends, great technology out there, different ideas in the world of work that moves an organization forward. We just need people to be the CEOs of their own lives. And I know that's why I'm so excited that you're sponsored by Daily Pay, because that's an example of an organization that's doing cool work and trying to help HR move forward. So I just wanted to say thank you to them.
Oh, thank you. And what a perfect segue. I would love to share with everybody a quick little video from our partners at Daily Pay, because they really are rewriting the unwritten rules of money so that we have a more equitable playing field from a financial perspective. And we're also more inclusive, because when your employees are holistically well, which means financial wellness, it means mental and spiritual and emotional and physical, like all the elements of wellness. We tend to only focus on certain elements, where they bring in the financial wellness element. So let's quickly see a brief video from our friends over at Daily Pay.
The reason your employees work isn't just about enjoying the work they do. It's about keeping their families going. Fresh starts, happiness, and feeling strong. It's time to show your workers you get it. Empower your workforce with on-demand pay. It isn't just about accessing their earned pay before payday. It's about giving employees access to their money as they earn it. Daily Pay, celebrating workers every day.
Such a phenomenal product, and I love that you get it, right? There's, I have this quote that I said it when I was doing a keynote years ago, and now I've used it many times, in that technology doesn't fix people problems.
Yeah.
People fix people problems. However, technology can inform and significantly increase the rate of the speed at which we can solve those problems. They can enhance things in ways that we may never have thought of. So I think I am a huge believer in using the right technology and the right tools to solve the right problems. Fundamentally, if your culture is completely broken and you have really bad leaders and you don't have people who care about other humans, there's not a technology on the planet that's going to fix that.
No.
But really, go ahead.
Well, I so appreciate that. And, years ago, I found that I was so excited about product. When I worked in human resources, I did business partner work. I was a leader. I laid people off, like did all that jazz, hired people. But I got excited about product, and there was no space in my life to look at cool product, because I was like dealing with somebody in Paducah, Kentucky who was cranky, and then somebody was sexually harassing someone else in Toronto and was like, oh, I didn't know we couldn't act like this at work. I'm like, you're a grown ass adult, I can't believe this. But because the locus of control wasn't with those people, they didn't feel like they really had to take ownership of their jobs. They could come to HR. I'm like, dealing with that stuff instead of dealing with the cool product stuff that I absolutely love. And I just, really wish that back in the day, I would have done more training with my workforce around self-leadership, individual accountability, well-being, continuous learning, risk-taking, all the stuff that I teach today. I had it within me. I just didn't think I could do it back then, because I think had I invested in my workforce in the 2000s, the early part of the century, 2010, I could be doing a different career now. But instead, I just deliver it all on LinkedIn Learning and hope that they find it. And Barbie, I've come to a place in my career where I get to look at cool technology. So I'm really, really pleased that you're working with Daily Pay. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I do too. And they're amazing partners. And it's a product I so wholly believe in. I used it, I implemented it, and I know the benefits. And I think that's where HR tech can be so great, is when you see it enhancing your employee experience, when you see that it's lifting the weight off the shoulders of your HR team. So we want those technologies in play that make it easier, better, faster, but also, I think, increase or enhance that human connection. And I think that's what we have to look at, is when we implement a technology that takes the place of the touch, the hand holding, how do we then enhance the connection through the technology, or in addition to, because we can't let go of those things. That's what humanizes us and our workforce and our workplaces. But we can make them better as long as we find other ways to connect that are meaningful to our people. And I think that's a key, is not letting go of that.
No, and not to be afraid of automation or digitization. I remember when we were working at Pfizer back in the day, I started there in 2004, and we were automating and digitizing even back then. We were really on the vanguard of that. And people would say, Laurie, aren't you afraid of losing your job? And don't you think employees are going to miss the human touch? I'm like, I am right here. They're going to have to drag me out. And they literally had to drag me out. They had to pay me to go away, even with how unhappy I was. I loved that job so much. I loved working with employees to really help them get to that intersection of purpose and meaning. And there are multiple ways we can do that without being the intermediary for every conflict, every issue, every benefits event out there. Like, a lot of that can really be managed through the world of technology. So I'm excited about automation and digitization. I've been a fan now for almost 20 years. And it's whether it's daily pay or it's something else. I'm excited to talk about how streaming pay is coming to the world of professional workers as well. It's not just for frontline workers, it's not for essential workers, but there is no reason that if you go to work on a daily basis and you're running your life like a business, at the end of the day, you can't have your money, no matter where you are on the org chart. So that is the future of pay. So I'm excited about that.
Agreed. I think it's another element that is really gaining some traction and some visibility that we need to really lean into. And if you're not, you definitely want to check it out for
That's
sure.
Right.
And choose the right vendor. There's several players in the field right now. Choose the right vendor for you. For sure. I happen to think daily pay is the gold star, but there's others. Yeah. So you've been in your entrepreneurial space now for how many years?
Well, my gosh, I don't know. I started blogging in 2004 when I was working at Pfizer, and established my own company in 2009. So it's been a long time. It's been a journey, that's for sure.
So in your book, you talk about how you started blogging, and nobody at Pfizer knew that you were blogging. And I don't know if anybody in your life knew, perhaps
really,
a few people, but not many. Did you feel, as you continued that blog, did you feel more and more empowered and more like, wow, I do know what I'm doing? Like, did you feel that sense of, holy crap, like, I'm not crazy. This is resonating with people. It's not just me. And then, where did you go from there?
Yeah. I've never suffered from a lack of confidence in my life. Little maturity has helped me to kind of work on that confidence and stream it in the right direction. But I knew what I was talking about. And I was always really despondent that I wasn't being listened to in corporate America and in global corporations, which is why I started writing and blogging anonymously. Back in the day, there were fewer people on this social web that we are now all immersed in. So it was easier to get my voice out, my ideas out. And one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that in my career now, I can mentor a generation of thinkers, thought leaders, individuals who have bigger ideas than I could ever have, who want a voice, who want to get out there. I can refer them to the right marketing resources. I can coach them. I can advise them. So that's been a wonderful journey. But, early on, you don't talk to anybody. Even when you're moderately successful, you don't know who's reading your shit out there. And I'm sorry to swear, you don't know who's reading your stuff out there. But for me, just the fact that I can connect with a person over here, a person over there was enough. It was about being of service. And that's something that I've learned over and over again. When I can remove myself out of the equation and really focus on solving other people's problems, I'm happier and I'm more effective as a communicator and as a leader. There's tension there, Barbie, though, because I put my face out there. I tell my own stories, but I just have to remember that it's not about me. Like, great. I may tell a story about going to Mexico or traveling abroad and laying people off, right? But the greater point is to make sure that people know they can learn, they can grow, they can change, they can transform, they can fix work by fixing themselves first. That's the point of my work, not just to look good or be on the internet. Nobody ever needs to see my face again. That's not the point of all this. The point of this is to change hearts and minds.
Yes. There's a coach. Gosh, I can't think of his name, but and it's about hearts and minds. And he was one of the most successful NFL coaches. I'm going to have to look it up. I'll email it to you. It's a great book I read years ago. And it was all about, he couldn't care less. how far you kicked the ball, how far you threw the ball. If your head and your heart was in the game, then he could coach you. If
Amazing.
it wasn't, then it didn't matter. You could be, you could have Tom Brady level skills, but if your head and your heart wasn't in it, you would never be on his team.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think the commonality there, right, between what you just shared and what I'm still discovering in myself and what that coach already knew, is that when you're connected to your purpose, when you're connected to your why, then all the rest of it makes so much more sense. And you flourish in ways that you couldn't even have imagined when you're on that path. And I think we compromise that so often when we're in a corporate setting, because we don't feel as though we can stay true, or at least that's my experience and the experience of a lot of people who I've spoken with, especially in the HR space. We are expected to walk that tightrope constantly of serving the organization, serving the employees.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the organization is paying you. And so there's always going to be that slant towards ensuring that the company is happy with the work you're doing. And sometimes that means other things are compromised. And that's a really tough spot to be in. And a lot of people don't realize that walk that we do every day in HR. And, I'm sure you read a lot of the same social media I do. And there's people out there who have never worked in HR and they're like, you should just quit your job if you can't do this and you can't do that. But not everybody has the financial ability to just walk away. And so, and you mentioned that, right? The whole Great Resignation. It's not smart for everybody to quit because they may not have something to go to. And then how are they going to pay their bills or feed their children or what have you?
For sure. For sure. I feel as if we're having a couple different conversations in society right now. Like everybody should have a why. I mean, yeah. Theoretically, but not everybody has a why. I have found that in my career, my why ebbs and flows and it also changes. And, my why used to be I wanted to fix work. And I mean, it's still there, but I also want to give my cats a really great life. I want to eventually start my own animal rescue. I want to retire. I want to go live at the beach full time. I want to go to the Maldives, right? But at one point in my life, I wanted to start a family and that why has changed. So I think whys can come and go, but you don't have to have a why to be of service. And I think that's just so important, right? For me, if it's all about me, I'm miserable. And while I want to put myself first and I want to flourish, I mean, that's really important. It can't be ego driven. And there are so many social media thought leaders out there who are walking around going, I want to change HR and I want to fix the future of work. But you get the feeling that they just want to be famous.
Yeah, especially if they've never sat in that seat. That's where the rub happens for me. Is I really struggle with some of these folks who are like, this is what should happen during an interview process, and this is what should happen during this, and this is how that. And I'm like, when have you ever done that?
Sure, there is tension there. I mean, not that they don't have the right to have a point of view, and not that they don't have really good ideas. There are essential thought leaders out there. I'm thinking of someone like a Josh Bersin, who's an expert on leadership and development. He's never worked in a traditional L&D job like that, but he's got really great, amazing ideas. So for me, when I'm looking out at the marketplace, I'm trying to look for someone who's authentic, who I like, know, and trust, and someone who's accessible. And so I think there are those people out there. I aspire to be one of them. I aspire to be helpful. And I just want HR professionals to know that their why can ebb and flow. They don't always have to be dedicated to the world of human resources, but if you're good at it, if you're moderately interested in it, you have a right to show up and do your job, and you have a right to do it without compromising your values and your integrity. And that's what I think betting on you is all about.
It really is, because as long as you know who you are, then the rest of it will fall into place for you, because like attracts like, and the more you're aligned with what works for you, the things that come into your life and that you seek are going to align with that. And I do love your point that your why can change, because certainly we evolve, right? And when you look at each decade as we age, what was important to us before may not be important to us today. Right. And, that I can think about in my early 30s, like all I wanted, well, I was in my 20s, as a matter of fact. I wanted this one particular job, and this was, late 90s. And I wanted to make $30,000 a year. I knew that if I made $30,000 a year, I made it. And I was, I had a manager title, and that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I got the job, I got the salary, got the title, and my best friend and I, we went to dinner, and we never went to this one restaurant. It was on this road in Tampa called Bayshore, multi-million-dollar homes on this, in this little restaurant. And I was like, ooh, when I'm making $30,000 a year, I'm going to take my friend to dinner at this place. And what was so funny is we got there, and it was like a diner, right?
Oh.
But so in my mind, I had built it up to be this amazing, restaurant that was, super fancy and expensive. And I've never forgotten that, because I think we do that to ourselves all the time. We create perceptions of things that we can and cannot attain based on what we believe they are. And so we hold ourselves back. And I could have been going to that restaurant for years. I could have afforded it for years, because dinner was $8. It just happened to be in this amazing location. So that lesson of we create barriers and boundaries for ourselves versus leaning into what we know we want to do and just going for it and figuring it out, as long as we're true to who we are.
That's right. I love that.
So Danielle has a question for us. So how do we find the fine line between asking for support from your management and not being shoved in the corner?
Well, that's a pretty binary question, isn't it? I really wonder, Danielle, what has prompted you to ask that question? Whenever somebody comes to me when I'm coaching them, I'm like, why are you asking that question? What's really going on? But I think, if you know who you are and what you're looking for in this world, the conversation becomes a little bit different. So I don't know, Barbie, what do you think about that?
So I think this is why folks need people like Laurie. Folks need coaches and that safe space, because there are times, depending on who your boss is, when you go to them with a question and asking for support, and it immediately turns into a judgment moment where they feel like you're not competent, or why are you asking me this? And especially in HR, most of the folks I coach have me as a coach because I create that safe space for them to ask for help or questions that they don't feel safe asking their direct boss or leaders, because they don't want to be perceived as not having all the answers.
Sure.
So the shoved in the corner piece, I think that's very, very specific. And if you have a leader, or I won't say a leader, because to me, leader means something else. If you have a boss or a manager who doesn't allow you to open up and acknowledge when you don't know something or when you make mistakes, that person, one, likely shouldn't be in that position. And I would say you have to take a look at, is that the right place for you? Because if you're afraid to ask for help, that's indicative of a whole lot of other underlying issues. It's that whole iceberg scenario, right? Mm-hmm. And that might be what you see above the waterline. And that's indicative of a whole hell of a lot of things that are under the waterline that are creating a culture that lacks trust, is based on fear. And I've been in those places, and I know what that feels like. And so you have to make that decision for yourself.
Barbie, when I hear a question like that, I hear someone who maybe has asked for help in the past and hasn't received what they needed, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe it doesn't want to make a mistake or is afraid. And so years ago, I was lucky enough to hear Sarah Blakely give a talk. And she's the founder and CEO of Spanx, one of the only billionaire women here in America, right? Sarah Blakely is amazing. And she is Gen X, like I am. And one of her millennial workers came to her and said, Sarah, how would you like me to do this task? And Sarah's like, I want you to do your job as if I weren't here. I want you to be brave. I want you to be bold. I want you to take a risk. I want you to lean into those critical thinking skills that we hired you to use. When Sarah Blakely says something like that, I would trust her. But a lot of times we don't have trust that our managers aren't going to eat us alive. We ask questions just to make sure we've covered our butts, right? We're a little nervous. And I wonder if that's part of where that question comes from. Maybe someone is afraid to make a mistake or make an error. They don't want to get chewed out. And then you have to explore whether or not you should stay in that organization or you should look around. There's a lot baked into that question. That's why I'm not necessarily a fan of answering that. But that Sarah Blakely story has really stuck with me because great managers want you to do your job as if they aren't there. Don't ask questions, just do it.
Yeah, I'd rather help correct on the back end to say, I love this. This was great. This was great. Maybe next time we approach this element a little bit differently, but look at everything you accomplished with this. Feel good about what you did gain, and let's keep going, right?
Well, Barbie, that's because you're a good manager. That's what that's a sign of.
Well, thank you. I'm sure I've given people more than one headache in my day. So
Maybe.
yeah, that can happen. I own it though. Totally own it. So, all right. Well, we are at 12:45. So I want to respect your time. We could talk for hours. There's so much amazing knowledge and I think little truth bombs that you drop. I want to again bring the book up so that everybody sees it. If you have not ordered this, please go to wherever. You can go to Laurie's website. You can go to Amazon. You can go. There's lots of places you can buy this.
Go to your local bookstore. They need your money. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I also encourage people, if you're like me and you're an Audible learner, download it from Audible because Laurie does narrate the book. So you can really hear her stories and your passion and your humor, which I really, really enjoy that. So I'm going to ask you just a couple of quick questions as we are wrapping up. Other than your book, what book have you given away to people more than any other book?
Wow. I give away a book. I think I have it right here. Yep. It's called The Coaching Habit. Say Less, Ask More, and Change the Way You Lead Forever by Michael Bungay-Stanier. He actually has a new book out right now around getting started. He's just a great author, and I consider him to be one of my mentors and my friends. I give this book away all the time.
I love that. I'm going to have to buy that one. I'm going to write that one down. Okay. What is one fun fact that we don't know about you that you can share?
Okay. Fun fact is that I can't swim, even though I love to be on the beach and I snorkel. I just use 2 noodles, and I've taken swim classes as an adult, and I cannot nail it. So I can't swim, but I can float.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
My husband calls me 2 noodles.
2 noodles. Oh my gosh, that's so
He's like,
cute.
Come here, 2 noodles.
I love that. I love that. And then how many animals do you have right now, currently in your home?
I have 3 cats right now. That's it.
Okay.
So we're at an all-time low.
Okay. All right. And then what kind of animal rescue do you want?
I would like to get some property and rescue abandoned animals that are both farm animals as well as just domesticated animals. So I would like some goats, some llamas, some alpacas. My dream is to open this with my friend Jennifer McClure. We talk about it all the time.
Well, we need to talk because that's also on my list, and I may have some property that we can use. So.
There you go. I love it. I'm all for it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Laurie, thank you so much for joining me. It has been such a pleasure. Wonderful conversation. I can tell the audience has really gotten so much out of this. I welcome you back to the table anytime.
Love it.
Whether or not you have a book, just come back. Just
Sounds
talk.
good.
We'll do it. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you next week at noon. With our guest and amazing new topics and conversations. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Cheers.